staying.
I'm staying.
So I begin with a confession that this gospel reading is last week's gospel reading, which I liked better than this week's gospel reading until I heard Miriam say what her priest preached about it, and then I thought, oh, if I'd have thought of that, maybe I'd have kept it. This week's gospel reading is the Lord's Prayer, and I didn't have anything special to say about that, but I had a lot to say about Mary and Martha. Mother Martha, Mother Martha. Oh.
Martha, Martha, Martha. Oh, Jan.
That's an inside joke. But I think probably for as long as there have been spiritual people, or at least, well, not even Christians, spiritual people, there have been some people who thought activism was the way to go. And there have been other people who thought contemplation is the way to go. And they have been at loggerheads. And my experience with this whole thing is that the Order of Julian of Norwich, who are lovely people, but they were quite smug about Mary having chosen the better part, because they are essentially semi-enclosed contemplative. So anytime you come across a passage that justifies your existence, of course you're going to like it. And I do believe that there's some people who are called to primarily a life of contemplation, but I don't believe that's a whole lot of people. I do not think anybody is called to a life of just activism. Because you see what happens whenever you see somebody red-faced, standing in the corner with a bunch of other people, holding picket signs, red-faced and screaming for peace. It's what Joan Halifax was talking about when she said if she didn't have time basically to withdraw, to take the in-breath, and was just active, she thinks she probably would be dead by now. It's true. You just can't always be having outflow and never have inflow, or the well runs dry. It's true in nature. We're part of nature. It's true of us. And so, I'm not saying that activism is better. I'm saying it's part of the picture. I'm saying that we need both. And when Jesus says, Mother Martha, Mother Martha, 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 you are worried and distracted by many things. One thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the better part. Well, it won't be taken away from her, no, but what makes us think that Jesus was talking about forever? What makes us think that Jesus was laying out this permanent plan for here's what you must do? What was Martha doing? Running around in the kitchen, doing active stuff, making lunch, or dinner, or whatever. You know, it's kind of like the clergy person who spends all their time preaching and teaching and Bible studying and running around in their heads and never takes time to sit back. They develop half of a personality. They develop half of a ministry. They develop the ability to tell you what to do and don't develop the ability to teach you how to listen to what you need. I'm going to give you what you need, whether you like it or need it or not. It doesn't work. And the same is true of anybody in any field. It's one of the great things, I think, about those fields that require continuing education. Because there's at least one thing you can't be doing while you're doing continuing education, and that is doing your job. It's a stopping of the output and a taking something in for yourself. And I think that's true. The need for that is true even for unemployed people. There still is that time for looking for work, and then there's that time for feeding ourselves. Even retired people. there has to be intentionality, and there the equation kind of flips. The tendency is to withdraw into the recliner, and the push maybe needs to be made to go out and do something so you get out of the house. That's why Walmart has so many greeters. You got to do something to keep Grandpa out of the recliner. But when we look at this, and we say, okay, no, Jesus is saying you must be a contemplative. That's where I think Richard Rohr really helps. We need more concrete practice concerning the issues, the many levels of healing that Jesus was clearly concerned about. Much clearer than any founding of a church institution or making dogmatic declarations. Well, we're not very good at that. It's a little uncomfortable. It's much easier to say, well, here's what Jesus wanted you to do. And none of this was temporary, and none of this was situational. All of it is for all time, and I don't know where we're going to get lunch. Because apparently nobody's supposed to pay. The longer you've believed something, the harder it is to let go. Because the longer you believe something, the more foundational it becomes to your understanding of the world. On Netflix, I'm watching the Star Trek series that I didn't get a chance to watch when they were on TV. And, of course, the best one was the first one, but some of the later episodes at least had some merit. I think the best one was the best one from the first one and the last one, and the ones in the middle sometimes lost track. But Star Trek Voyager had an episode called Emanation. And it's about a culture that believed, see if this sounds familiar, that after you die, you evolve into assume a different form in the afterlife. And you see all the people who have gone before you. And it's a good and positive thing. And it was what gave their life meaning. And you certainly never had any physical remnant left behind. You were sort of resurrected, although they didn't use that word. And it was just a better place. And eventually, if you were kind of sick, well, maybe you wanted to go a little early. And when it happened in this particular episode that very inadvertently, the crew from the ship, from the Voyager, ended up discovering where these bodies were placed after they died. It shook to the core the faith of the people who thought there shouldn't be bodies. I mean, what does that mean? And what's more, because these bodies were transported essentially out onto asteroids around another planet, when there was a little accident and one of the bodies got sent out and the little pod came back and had one of the crew from the Voyager on it because of a weird timing thing that's not important, they assumed this guy had come back from the other side. He'd come back from the dead. And he would tell them about what happened before their new emanation. And when he told them there were bodies, and one of the characters said, I have believed this all my life. You are trying to take away the way that I understand my life and my work. So what if the tomb wasn't empty? Why, then you don't believe in anything. You're not a Christian anymore. Or more practically and more importantly, what if no matter how hard we try to decide what happens after we die, the best we have is an educated guess? And if our educated guess is a little bit off, and somebody comes along with a better, slightly more educated guess, will we be willing to let go of what we thought was going to happen and embrace what seems a bit more likely to happen? What if when John dies, he's not going to see Grandpa wherever Grandpa is? At least not in the way we understand seeing. Does that mean everything is wrong that we believe? The more we want to define things and nail them down, the more we build a box around ourselves. And especially on days like this, it's not very comfortable to sit inside a small box. It's a little hot, not much air in there. But what if we could build a box that was made of screen, like for windows? What if our box became something that air or thought could pass in and out of? What if our box had these holes in it because it had screen sides, but the good news was if the roof leaked, we wouldn't drown. If it rained and water started to come in, the water would just pour out. It would be a more open existence. It would be a place where we could take the time to ponder what's important, what's not, what's foundational, what can I let go of, what matters, what doesn't. How do I take care of myself? How can I remain open to that presence of the Spirit that we talk about so much, but tend to even with that, we want to define it. Well, if you're really open to the Spirit, it means 12 minutes after the service begins, you'll fall down and roll down the aisle. And that's how you'll know it's there. And maybe it is there. Maybe it's not. But it's not the only way. There is no one practice, one belief, one perspective, one goal, one job, one anything on which everything else we believe stands. We have collections of things. Some of them we hold on to really tightly, and that's okay. Some of them we hold on to more loosely. That might be a little better. Some of them go to the rummage sale, and you can't get rid of them for 10 cents. But we trade, every time we choose certainty, we're trading an opportunity to know the truth for our own comfort. If I'm certain it works this way, I will never see that it doesn't. And that's why you can't just have activity without contemplation. That's why you can't just be going without taking the time to look around. Our minds know that, our bodies know that, our spirits know that. And even though workaholism is a rewarded unvirtue in our culture, when you look at people whose particular activity is always involved in their work, you see what they don't do. They don't have a family, they don't have many friends, they don't really have interests outside of their work. They become one-dimensional creatures. And contemplation doesn't allow that. Because contemplation takes us to a place where we shut down our preconceived notions and focus. And then what arises are different ideas, authentic ideas, sometimes frightening ideas, sometimes ideas that require medical treatment. But out of that process comes health, comes creativity, comes challenge, comes a fuller life. And it's not a matter of locking yourself away in a cloister. It's a matter of 5 minutes a day. And preferably more, but hey, you gotta start somewhere. 30 seconds is nice too. But when that happens, a natural balance also occurs. And we can be open to things like truth, beauty, change, except in retail establishments. They moved the bakery to Pickens.
Those bastards.
Those bastards. They put the tables in the aisles. Damn it. But even that we can work on. And sort of. We may not succeed, but we can work on it. And in the end, the strange thing is, we might do less and achieve more. We might be seen in the eyes of some to not be as motivated, while at the same time we actually accomplish more. And I think that's exactly what Jesus meant when he said, Mary has chosen the better part. And then they didn't record what he said, for now. But I guarantee you, when Jesus got a little hungry, he said, Martha's chosen the better part. Amen.
Amen.
When he was done talking, they all had to get up and come for the dinner.
That's right. Who's doing the dishes?